The Witch Sisters of Rainy Season, Louisiana. It was raining hard in Bayou Falls, Louisiana. The kind of rain that comes sideways and makes you feel personally targeted. Sandra was in her kitchen making fried catfish and hush puppies and feeling sorry for herself in a productive way. Cloud with rain. The roof was leaking in 3 places. Her husband Roy was out somewhere trying to sell produce from their roadside stand, which in this rain was approximately as successful as selling ice in Antarctica. They had $11 in the checking account, and Sandra had been stretching a bag of cornmeal for 6 days. Then someone knocked on the door. Sandra opened it to find 2 women standing on her porch. Sisters, clearly. Same wide eyes, same sharp cheekbones, same expression of someone who has found what they were looking for and is very pleased about it. They were completely dry despite the rain hitting everything around them. "Hi there," said the one on the left. Her name, she said, was Mabel. "We smelled your cooking from the road." "Lord, that smells good." "Smells like heaven," said the one on the right, whose name was Dolly. "What is that catfish?" Sandra looked at them. She looked at the rain. She looked at how dry they were in the middle of that rain. "Y'all want to come in?" she said. Because she was from Louisiana and you invited people in. That was just what you did. She would think about this decision many times over the next 2 weeks. Anxious face with sweat, Mabel and Dolly came in and sat at the kitchen table and watched Sandra cook with the focused appreciation of people who have been eating something very different for a very long time and have almost forgotten what good food looks like. "You are an artist," Mabel said when Sandra set the plate down. "This is the best thing I have eaten in 40 years, Dolly said. "You're not that old," Sandra said. Dolly smiled in a way that didn't answer the question. Sandra sat across from them and watched them eat and felt the first small wrongness. Not one thing she could point to, more like the accumulation of several small things. The way they didn't blink at the same rate as people. The way the rain on the window seemed to lean toward them. The way Mabel's shadow on the wall was slightly delayed, as if it was taking notes on what she did and repeating it a second later. Roy came home at 6, soaking wet and unsuccessful, and found 2 strangers at his kitchen table. "Who are these ladies?" he said. "Your cousins," Mabel said pleasantly. "I don't have cousins named Mabel and Dolly." "You have so many cousins, Roy," Mabel said. "You've lost track." Roy looked at Sandra. Sandra gave him the look that meant "I'll explain later, but for now just go with it." He knew this look well. He went with it, faced with steam from nose. Later that night in the bedroom with the door closed, Sandra told him what she had seen. The dryness in the rain, the shadow delay, the way Dolly's eyes had caught the light wrong when she laughed. "You invited them in," Roy said. "You invite people in," Sandra said. "That's what we do." "Sandra, Roy, you invited something in." They looked at each other in the dark. Roy took a breath. "Okay," he said. "We figure out what they want and we get them out. Diplomatically. And if that doesn't work." Roy had no immediate answer for this. "Let's go." The next morning, Mabel was up before Sandra and had started breakfast. This would have been thoughtful except that she had used every egg in the house, the last of the good butter, and what appeared to be ingredients that had not been in the kitchen the night before. Fresh herbs that Sandra didn't recognize, a dark powder that smelled like the inside of old wood, and something in a small jar that she definitely had not purchased at the Winn-Dixie. "What is that?" Sandra said, pointing at the jar. "Seasoning," Mabel said cheerfully. "From where?" "Oh, you know, around." Sandra did not eat the eggs. Roy ate 2 bites before he noticed the powder and set his fork down. Dolly came downstairs at 9, looking genuinely rested and happy. She was wearing Sandra's bathrobe. "Good morning," she said. "Sandra, your shower is incredible. The water pressure. I forgot what good water pressure felt like. How long has it been since you had a shower?" Roy asked. Dolly thought about this. Since the Eisenhower administration." Roy put his fork down completely, face screaming in fear. "We need to talk," Roy told Sandra in the laundry room, which was the room furthest from wherever Mabel and Dolly were at any given moment. "I know. Those are not people. I know. Sandra, I know, Roy." She was whispering but aggressively. "But they haven't hurt us. They're just staying here, eating everything, using all the hot water. asking me to make gumbo at 11 o'clock at night. Last night, Dolly asked me to make her a grilled cheese at 2 a.m. Did you make it? Of course I made it. She was standing over me with those eyes. Sandra put her hands over her face. Through her hands, she said, "We have to get rid of them. I went to see old Mr. Thibodeau this morning when I said I was getting gas." Sandra lowered her hands. "What did he say?" "He said there are certain spirits that attach to households through food, particularly food made with love and good intention during a storm. He said they're not dangerous." That's reassuring. But they're extremely hard to dislodge because they've been invited in willingly and they've been fed. So what do? Roy reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something Mr. Thibodeau had given him. A small round mirror. Old. Brass frame. He explained what Mr. Thibodeau had told him about it. Sandra looked at the mirror. She looked at Roy. That's the plan. That's the plan. That's not much of a plan. Mr. Thibodeau is 92 and charges $50 and I had $11, so this is what we've got. Faced with steam from nose. It took Roy 3 days to find the right moment. Mabel and Dolly were not easy to catch off guard. They had the spissy supernatural alertness of beings who had survived by reading situations correctly for longer than the state of Louisiana had existed. During those 3 days, several things happened. Mabel reorganized Sandra's entire pantry and spice cabinet with a thoroughness and accuracy that Sandra privately found impressive and refused to admit out loud. Dolly watched every season of a cooking show on the television and took notes in a small notebook she produced from somewhere and offered commentary that was genuinely insightful. Mabel fixed the leak in the kitchen roof. Sandra did not ask how. The leak was fixed. Dolly, at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday, woke up Sandra to ask if she would make beignets. And when Sandra made the beignets because she was afraid not to, Dolly ate 12 of them and said, "I haven't been this happy since 1847. And Sandra had to go back to bed and think about that for a while, anxious face with sweat. The opportunity came on a Friday evening. Mabel and Dolly were sitting at the kitchen table discussing whether Sandra's red beans and rice was better than a version they had apparently eaten in 1923 at a restaurant that no longer existed. They were animated. They were distracted. Roy put the mirror on the table. Face up. Just set it down like he was putting down a placemat. "What's that?" Dolly said. "Old family heirloom," Roy said. "We like to display it." Dolly looked at it. The mirror was positioned so that both of them could see their reflections. And their reflections, as Mr. Thibodeau had told Roy, would show them what they actually were. Not the comfortable disguise they had worn for 2 weeks in Sandra and Roy's kitchen, but the true form underneath. Mabel saw it first. She went very still. Then Dolly saw it. The kitchen lights flickered. The temperature dropped about 8 degrees instantly, which in Louisiana in summer is very noticeable. The red beans on the stove bubbled twice and then stopped bubbling even though the heat was still on. Both of them looked up from the mirror and looked at Roy. "You found out," Mabel said. "I found out," Roy said. "The mirror trick," Dolly said. She did not sound angry. She sounded almost impressed. "That's old. I haven't seen that in 100 years. Mr. Thibodeau," Mabel said. "That old man. He sends his regards," Roy said. A pause. The lights steadied. The beans started bubbling again. Then Dolly said, very quietly, "We weren't going to hurt you." "I know," Roy said. Dolly looked at the table. "We forget sometimes that we can't just stay, that we have to be asked, and then eventually we have to be asked to go." She paused. "Nobody has asked us to go before using the mirror. Usually people just scream and run. We're not really the screaming type," Sandra said from the doorway. She had been listening. "But you have to go. You understand that?" "Yes," Mabel said. "The roof thing was nice," Sandra said. "I want you to know that." Mabel looked at her. Something moved across her face. Something that in a person would have been the specific feeling of being seen accurately and kindly. "We know we overstayed," she said. "We always overstay. Something about people who cook with intention. We can't help it." "You're welcome to come back," Roy said. He was aware this was either a very kind thing to say or a very stupid one, and he said it anyway. Properly. as guests who leave when the visit is done. Both sisters looked at him for a moment, then at each other. Then the kitchen filled with a smell, not unpleasant, actually quite wonderful, like every good meal ever made in that kitchen concentrated into one breath. And Mabel and Dolly were gone. Just gone. The chairs they'd been sitting in were slightly warm. The mirror on the table showed only the kitchen reflected back. Sandra walked over and picked it up and put it in a drawer. "Do you think they'll actually come back?" Roy asked. "I think if it rains hard enough and I'm making something that smells good enough." Sandra said, "Yes." She went to the stove and stirred the red beans. "I think that's just how it's going to be." Roy sat down at the kitchen table. He thought about this for a while. "Could be worse," he said eventually. "Could definitely be worse," Sandra agreed. 3 weeks later, during the next big Louisiana storm, something knocked on their door at dinner time. Sandra was making her grandmother's gumbo. She went to the door. Nobody there. Just rain. But on the porch, there was a small jar. Dark glass. A note attached that said, in handwriting that looked like it predated ballpoint pens, "Better than what you had. Trust us. M&D." Sandra opened the jar, smelled it, thought about it for a long time. Then she added a small amount to the gumbo. Roy said it was the best gumbo he had ever tasted in his life. Sandra did not tell him about the jar until after dinner. He was quiet for a minute. Then he said, "Can we get more of whatever that was?" "I don't know how to order it," Sandra said. "I guess we just keep cooking," Roy said. With the door unlocked. Outside, the rain came down hard and steady, and somewhere in Bayou Falls, Louisiana, two old things that had been around long enough to miss the feeling of a warm kitchen were deciding whether it was too soon to knock again. Smiling face with smiling eyes. The end ghost.